Welcome to the Miko Peled podcast. I'm your host Jamil, and we are back for episode 2. Right off the bat, we want to give a huge thanks to everyone who's given us feedback and supported this podcast project. Both Miko and I are really excited to show you what else we have in store. So today's episode took place during Miko's trip to Palestine this past February. Miko sat down with Umar al Ghubari, a staff member of Zochrot, and I'll spell that out for you. That's Zochrot. Zochrot is an NGO that formed in 2002 to promote acknowledgement and accountability for the ongoing injustices of the Nakba and for the reconceptualization of the return as the imperative redress of the Nakba and a chance to better life for all the country's inhabitants. That's straight from the mission statement of the organization. So the word Zochrot means remembering in Hebrew. So there's your word of the day right there, and make sure to get that hard ch sound in there. So Zochrot does incredible work around prioritizing the right of return for all Palestinian refugees, and not just talking about it, but creating the material framework for its implementation, while pushing for its absolute necessity as a starting point to any solution or any plan that's being proposed or considered kind of in the greater consciousness. Another project that Zochrot is pretty well known for is their creation of a mobile app called iNakba. That's spelled iNakba. So iNakba is a mobile app that is available in Arabic, Hebrew, and English, and it's based on GPS navigation technology. So iNakba allows users to locate and learn about Palestinian localities that were destroyed during and also as a result of the Nakba in 1948. And I encourage everybody to open up their app store like right now on their phone and download iNakba. I actually used this app during my last trip to Palestine. It was amazing to be mapped in real time based on my current location, like wherever I was standing, to learn about those Palestinian localities that were ethnically cleansed in 1948. This app provides an interactive history complete with like photos, videos, and also user comments. Really cool app. Highly recommend everyone check it out, even if you're not in the Palestinian region. You can still dig into all of the features and the data without being physically there. But it does take a whole nother life of its own when you are actually, in 48 yourself and have the app open. So that's a bit about Zochrot, but let's get into Umar's life a little bit. His primary area of knowledge is as a conflict facilitator. And prior to joining Zochrot in 2006, he worked as the coordinator in the Karev educational program, as well as a coordinator of youth activities at the School for Peace at Nev Shalom Wahat al-Salam. His work before and leading up to Zochrot is inspiring and so important. There really can't be a solution without an acknowledgement of the Nakba and a corresponding commitment for the right to return. Additionally, for this episode, we are calling on all of our listeners and friends to contribute to a public fundraising campaign for Zochrot that's taking place on March 22nd and March 23rd. This campaign is called The 48 Hours to Acknowledge the 48 Crimes. So save the date on your calendars and keep up with Miko's social media and newsletter. I'll be reminding our audience when the 48-hour fundraising drive is approaching, just to sort of nudge you and let you know that it's time to chip in. Any amount that you can donate within those 48 hours on zochrot.org, as well as Zochrot's Facebook page, would be massively appreciated. And if you miss the deadline, you can also just make a regular online donation to the org, but we're really encouraging people to do so within that 48-hour campaign. That's really the way to go here. So again, save those dates, March 22nd and March 23rd. There will be more details towards the end of the podcast when Miko and Umar talk about the specifics of the campaign. Before we get into the conversation with Umar, I just want to shout out a couple of Miko's upcoming speaking dates. On March 13th, PSL Washington, D.C. will be hosting Miko for their Liberation Friday series. The title of the talk is Miko Peled on Palestine and the BDS movement, and that's going to be at the Justice Center in Washington, D.C. Then on March 18th, the UK Students' Conference and Olive present No to the Deal of the Century with Miko Peled in central London. The venue is yet to be announced, but head over to mikopeled.com. You'll be able to RSVP there. You can also go to the website to RSVP for any of his other upcoming events, and we'll update that information as it becomes available. So that'll do it for March in terms of speaking dates, but if you or your group are interested in inviting Miko to speak at your event or to your community, just shoot me an email at booking@mikopeled.com or hop on the website to request more information. Now on to the conversation between Miko Peled and Umar al Ghubari.
I'm sitting here with my friend Umar al Ghubari, who is a guy that works with Zochrot, one of the most important NGOs working in Palestine. And we're sitting on the outskirts of Jerusalem, near a kibbutz called Kiryat Anavim. And I'll let you, Omar, describe Zochrot and what the organization does and what you do. And then we can talk about maybe specific areas within Palestine and what has transpired there, particularly maybe this area here leading up to Jerusalem.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe you can start with talking about Zochrot a little bit.
Okay, great, thank you. Zochrot was founded in 2002 by Israeli Jewish activists in order to raise the awareness about the Palestinian Nakba inside the Israeli Jewish society. This is the main goal of this NGO. And by the way, the meaning of the word is in Hebrew, and the meaning is remembering, and we want people to remember the Nakba, and we call the Israeli side to take responsibility and acknowledgement, and to acknowledge the responsibility of the Israeli side on the Palestinian Nakba and the expulsion of the Palestinians, and if they wish to build up justice, kind of justice in this land, they should also recognize the right to return of the Palestinian refugees. We believe this is very crucial, and it must be acknowledged and must be implemented in order to succeed to build space that people can live equally in it, including the returnees themselves. We try during the year to deliver the information about the Nakba and the right to return in different ways. One of them, and the first one, was to visit or to tour or to walk among the ruins of the Palestinian destroyed localities that the State of Israel destroyed starting in 1948 till today. I just published yesterday some photos from one of the Palestinian villages which is located today in the center of Tel Aviv, called Summel, very close to Rabbinic Square and to the City Hall of Tel Aviv. And these days, the authorities are taking away what remained from the village, the houses and the mosque, and they are building new buildings instead of them. So the erasure of the Palestinian ruins and the Palestinian houses still ongoing. It didn't happen once, it didn't happen only in 1948, but the remaining houses are also under the plans of the Israeli authorities. When they want to build something for the Jewish community, they will erase all these houses and build new neighborhoods. And we can talk about other examples around us and even around Jerusalem and not so far from here. Some of the plans that the Israeli government and the municipalities try to erase more and more Palestinian houses and to build Israeli neighborhoods. So the tools is one main tool that we use in order to let people see and feel where they live, mainly the Israelis. And we support that with our publications and writing and a very rich website in the three languages, Arabic, Hebrew, and English, talking about the Palestinian expulsion and the refugees and the destroyed places. We publish booklets about each place that we visit. Unfortunately, the number of the Palestinian localities is huge. We talk about 600 Palestinian villages, towns, and cities that been expelled and destroyed. We managed to do about 65 researches, about 65 different places. So we published 65 different booklets about these places. And it's only 10%, unfortunately, but of course you can see the policy of the expulsion in these 10% of examples of the Palestinian destroyed places. We published for the Israelis in Hebrew the Nakba map, which is the only map that Israelis can find out what is the name of the Palestinian town that used to be in the place that they live in. And in Hebrew, you might find that in Arabic and in English, many, but in Hebrew, this is the only one that you can see. And following the technology, we launched a very attractive app that's called iNakba for smartphones in 3 languages. And it includes the map and the information about every destroyed place, and you can use it as a GPS. And it will lead you, it will take you to a place that is not existing. This is the only GPS in the world that takes you in a place that's not there. And you will reach the center or the location of the village or the town as it was shown in the British maps before the Nakba, before 1948, which is amazing experience to use it. I recommend anyone to use it, first of all, to get the information about the whole Palestinian destroyed places, but the second step, to use it in order to reach these places. This is really amazing experience. Beside that, as I said, the website, which is updated all the time, everything, every photo, every piece of paper that we find regarding the Palestinian life before the Nakba, we put that in our website, free for anyone can use it and can download anything from our website. So this part of the work, which talks about the past and the disaster that happened in Palestine, very important, but we try not to remain in that part of knowledge and part of how you call it, of ideas or thinking about this land. We developed during the last decade a project talking about the right to return and the implementation of the right to return of the Palestinian refugees. We asked groups, Palestinians, Israelis, internationals, experts, activists from different places to give ideas or to build models or to just to think about the practical aspects of the return. Unfortunately, during our research, we didn't find any practical plan how return should be implemented or how it looks like. Even not in the PLO or the Palestinian Authority, or of course not in the United Nations. So I think this was a pioneer idea that Zochrot and other Palestinian NGO from Beit Lahem called Badil started to think about the practicalities of return in order to understand how we want this landscape to look like, and to show that it is feasible, it's possible. Besides, it is just and it must be done.
Yeah, that's incredible. I've seen, like I said, I've been to your tours, I've seen the website, I have the app. These are all incredible things. And lately I've noticed this campaign of return that you've been posting about and writing about, I think is incredible. I was in Jordan now, and I went to one of the camps in Jarash in the north.
Wow.
And it's called the Gaza camp because they are refugees who came from Gaza in '67. And the conditions are horrifying, beyond horrifying. And 2 hours away by car is Palestine, where these people really belong. Maybe 3 hours, because some of them are from the south. And here on the one side, Israel gets $4 billion a year that it doesn't need, and these people live in utter poverty, getting, really pennies from all these NGOs.
Yeah.
So that's an incredible idea. Now I went on tours with you, one in the very north, one time with some friends near Shlomi,
Yeah.
by the Lebanese border.
Al Bassa village.
And as we talked about it, you were talking about things that have been revealed recently. In other words, the destruction was in 48, but things that were revealed recently about this. And then another trip, we went to Dir Yassin
Yeah.
in Jerusalem, which was, of course, horrifying. And then we went to Jaffa, where you showed us those pictures. So things are still being revealed. How does that happen? I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
For example, in the north.
Well, as far as I understand, there was no one policy for the Zionist leadership and the state of Israel during the years. Some of the places that they captured in 1948, they destroyed immediately. I have stories that people are forcing to flee from the village after bombing the village, and they are staying for few days in the hills in front of their own village, and they see the Israeli army blowing up their houses and their buildings in the village. So sometimes it happened immediately. In other cases, we see that Israel used the Palestinian houses in order to populate Jewish families that immigrated to the state of Israel in that time in the early 50s, in 49. The closest example to our meeting today is the village of Lifta, that was populated for 20 years with Israeli families till the early 70s. We have information that one mass destruction happened in 1966-65, mainly in the area that's surrounding Jerusalem and close to the border with the West Bank.
So this is before 67, before the 1967 war.
Exactly. This is very important information to note that the plan for the war in 1967 was already known for the Israeli leadership, and after occupying the West Bank, they will meet thousands of Palestinian refugees that were expelled in 1948 from their original villages. So they destroyed their houses before the occupation of the West Bank in order
So that they can't come back.
Exactly, to block or to destroy the hope that they can come back to something. And these houses were destroyed, and there is no place to go back to, or even to see, or to maybe to develop any hope for return. And in other cases, in the Galilee, for example, it happened also in the 60s and the 70s. Sometimes the Israelis don't have any specific plan to do in a certain village, so they use it for different purposes, and they waited just for any plan. Inside the forests of the JNF, there are hundreds of Palestinian villages. All of them are destroyed. In this case, we can see that all the Palestinian houses, you can see just ruins and cemeteries, but the houses are completely destroyed. In these days, you can see new projects like streets or buildings. Then the Israelis decide to destroy what remained from the Palestinian localities and the Palestinian properties. For example, the student houses in the University of Tel Aviv that was built in the village of Sheikh Mouannis were built 10 years ago on part of the cemetery of Sheikh Mouannis. So they destroyed part of the cemetery in order to build the student houses for the University of Tel Aviv. In these days, you can see the expansion of the city of Beit Shemesh, and all the new neighborhoods are taking more and more lands and ruins and graves of the Palestinian villages that surrounding that area.
And Beit Shemesh is what, about 10 kilometers outside Jerusalem, something like that?
Yeah, about 15 kilometers outside of Jerusalem. Yeah. And the ruins of villages like Deir Aban or the villages of Beit Natif are very close to the neighborhoods of Beit Shemesh. expanding of this city is taking more and more ruins and destroying and actually erasing more and more evidences of these Palestinian villages. Not so far from here, you can see very close to your town, Motza, this was a Palestinian village called Kalunia, and some of the ruins. Okay. And you still see ruins of the Palestinian village. Most of the houses are destroyed. Some houses are still standing, but most of the houses are destroyed. But you still feel that Palestinian village was there. The new projects and the new neighborhoods of Mevaseret Zion and the main road to Jerusalem took more and more dunams of land from this area of the village.
It was Kalunia. I'm just curious because that is where I grew up. So Kalunia was just on the bottom, or was Kalunia going up the hill towards Castel as well? Because there were homes. I remember
there are homes in the bottom, and there are
homes
also in the hill, very close to the houses of Mevaseret Zion today.
But in between, that's where Motza is, and I remember seeing houses that many of them were just taken by people, and these beautiful stones were turned into a fence or something.
You can still see examples of Palestinian houses are still standing.
Yeah.
And the other houses were very similar.
And there were terraces, you can tell, and you can tell that there are the fig trees everywhere.
Yeah,
and
the cactus.
And the cactus everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. So in these days, if you look at these new projects, you can see that every year something is disappearing from the Palestinian view of the place because of these new projects. And you mentioned the village of Al Bassa in Shlomi, the same. All the time that the Israeli town of Shlomi was expanding, it takes more and more Palestinian houses, and they destroy Palestinian houses. As I said, in these days, you can visit Tel Aviv, very close to the city hall of Tel Aviv and the Rabin Square, and you see the new Israeli neighborhood taking the place of the village of Sommel. So because I did the tour in Sommel the last time 2 months ago, and the one before 1 year ago, and I see what happened in 1 year.
So there are still houses and a mosque there in the center of Tel
Aviv? Till the mid of 2019, the mosque was there. In the end of 2019, everything was destroyed and erased, including the mosque, and new buildings are in the process of structure in these days.
So the mosque was not used, obviously. It just kind of stood there as a ruin?
It was used for many years as synagogue. And it's not surprising me, it seems shocking, but there are dozens of Palestinian small mosques are used as synagogues till this day. One in Tirat Carmel, which was the village Tirat Haifa. One in Nis Tziona, which was the village of Wadi Hunain. I have many examples, and it's unfortunately happened in many places. We can talk a lot about the what happened to the mosques, but to see that mosques are used as a synagogue, it's really difficult to understand.
When we were in I forget the name of the village in Shlomi again?
Al Bassa.
Al Bassa. You talked about something else. You said that recently there was information about what happened at the village inside the church, about a massacre that took place.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Can you talk about that? You said that this was rather newer information that came out that was discovered.
Well, the old people of the village remember that something bad happened around the church, and one testimony of old Palestinian guy told about at least two brothers, brother and sister, were murdered by the Israeli army immediately when the village was captured, very close to the church. But 2 years ago, a Jewish lady called us in Zochrot, and she wanted to talk about some information that her father told her because he took part in the occupation of the village of Al-Bassa. And he said definitely that the massacre around the church, close to church, was much bigger, and about 20 people were murdered and massacred close to church, and he was there. He saw that. I'm not sure if he did that, but he at least saw that, which is very interesting because we think that we know many things about the Nakba and what happened during the Nakba, but unfortunately there are still many information that we don't know.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that the Israeli authorities still hiding about 50% of the documentary of 1948 in the Israeli archive and not allowing people to read what is there, I think it's giving us a hint what more terrible things we can find out. Even what we know till now, it's really very difficult, and showing the big crimes that the Zionists did against the Palestinian people. But imagine that even what we know is so terrible, what is still hidden in the Israeli archives. So this, the ongoing research is very important, as we do and other NGOs and other historians and other activists still doing. I think it's very, very important in order to explore these crimes and information about it.
When we were in Jaffa, you did something that I found was incredible, and I tell this to everybody, so I'll talk about it briefly, but I want you to talk about it. You showed us some pictures, a series of pictures that had a kind of a progression. So can you talk about that?
Yeah.
What you showed us and what it means?
Well, this part that we have photos of one of the most known neighborhoods of Jaffa called Manshia, which was actually located between the old city of Jaffa and the new Hebrew city of Tel Aviv. It was built in 1880 and occupied in 1948. And one of the Zionist myths that this land was empty and the city of Tel Aviv was built on sands and nothing was there. And I was surprised to see one piece that Nahum Gutman, one of the Israeli Zionist painters, drew. He drew the beginning of Tel Aviv, the neighborhood of Chuzat Bayit, the beginning of Tel Aviv, and the old city of Jaffa, and between them there are he painted nothing. It was just sands and
Sand dunes.
empty, and sand dunes and empty space.
Very romantic looking, very barren, and virgin.
That's right. And even he painted also the sea, and there's a sun, smiley sun from above, from the west. I see that it's this smiley sun and shining sun coming from the west, as colonial mind can think about what they are doing in this part of the world. And as I said, this painting was done in the 30s, 1934, 35, and the area that he painted between Tel Aviv and the old city of Jaffa was full with houses and populated with thousands of Palestinians. One of them is the neighborhood of Manshia, and we have a photo of the neighborhood in the 40s. And we can just compare, we can put the two photos and to see how his mind didn't see the neighborhood of Manshia.
And he lived there, didn't he?
He lived there. He lived very
there,
close to the Nevet Tzedek. It's a Jewish neighborhood very close to Manshia.
So he would have seen these houses,
saw these houses,
streets.
of
It looks
course.
like a big city with streets and homes. I mean, you can't confuse it.
Exactly.
It wasn't like sparsely
amazing.
built or something. This was heavily built city.
Yeah, and modern streets
Yeah.
and modern houses, and
Yes.
it's in a straight lines between his house, where is he living, and the old city of Jaffa. Everything was there.
Everything was built.
Everything was built. And it's amazing how he dared to draw this view without the Palestinian neighborhood and without the Palestinian houses.
Yeah, with nothing at all. It's
With
just
nothing,
dunes,
just dunes.
and the beach.
Yeah.
And I think there's either the port or the mosque or something in the background.
In the background, he drew the old city of Jaffa
Oh, the old
with
city.
the
Yes.
tower of the church, the church,
Yes.
which is again, it's an exotic city, it's an oriental place that he sees there.
Yeah.
But the modern life, the daily life, the people, the nation that lives there, he didn't see. Well, I'm sure he saw that, but he didn't consider them that something was to be in this piece that he drawn because he wanted to give a message.
So you showed the painting, and right next to that you showed the photograph of what
Of
it was
the
like,
neighborhood.
of the neighborhood, and
Ex-
it's
yeah.
it was shocking. But then you showed a couple of more.
Then we have a photo with from 1948, immediately after the occupation of the neighborhood that was bombed from the side of Tel Aviv, and most of the houses were destroyed. You see really the destroyed houses and destroyed streets, and very similar to what we saw recently in Gaza or in other bombed places.
Or in Berlin after World War II, it looks like it was
it's
bombed from
heavy,
the air. Actually,
heavy artillery
completely.
shelling
Yeah.
to the neighborhood, and the neighborhood was completely expelled. Even when the members who did this attack was the organization one of the Zionist militias called the Eitzel. They started the occupation of the city of Jaffa. By the way, despite the fact that Jaffa was outside of the lines of the partition plan,
Right.
they started the attack on April 1948, before the establishment of the State of Israel and before the formal war between Israel and the Arab armies started. So it's all what the Israelis try to say that it was a defense war, was a reaction of any attack. It's not true, and Jaffa is one strong example to show us that the plan to expel Palestinians was there in the mind and in the plan, and of course in the interest of the Zionist movement in order to succeed to build the Jewish state with Jewish majority.
Actually, Jaffa was kind of like Jerusalem in a way, wasn't it? It was supposed to be independent or somehow, wasn't it? Or was it part of the Palestinian Arab state?
It's part of the Palestinian Arab offered state, but it was like an enclave,
Like a little
disconnected.
enclave, yes.
It's disconnected from the other territory of the Arab state. After the expulsion of these people, some of the houses were used by the Israeli municipality of Tel Aviv immediately after 1948, but in the 60s and the 70s, the Israeli authorities destroyed the remaining houses of the Palestinian neighborhood, and they just made the area flat and empty, and they built up a park that called Charles Clore Park along the coastline, and which is the promenade of Tel Aviv today. And if you look from the same point, almost from Hassan Bek Mosque, which is still standing there, and you look towards the city of Jaffa, you will see again that this flat area becomes empty, as Nahum Gutman imagined or painted in his painting in the 30s.
Except without dunes, there's a parking lot and a park.
Yeah, it's a grass and green and park and beautiful park. Yeah, and all the ruins of the neighborhood are actually buried under this park.
And then we walked towards Jaffa, and there was a house that remained.
Yeah,
that you showed us.
Yeah, actually, it's a part of house. The house was much bigger, and we know that immediately after 1948, a Jewish family lived there, and after the authorities used that area and they evacuated the Jewish families to other neighborhoods, this house kept empty, and in the 80s, 1984, it was given to the same militia that expelled and occupied the neighborhood, the Eitzel, the Irgun, what's called the Irgun, and the Eitzel using this house as a museum for the heritage and the the actions and the operations that the Etzel did in 1947-48 and the history of this organization.
But
So imagine
but what is the house called? The house is an interesting name. In memory of.
now it's called the house, the Etzel House.
In the memory of.
It's I think it's in the memory of the liberators of
The-
Jaffa,
Exactly.
of course.
The liberators.
Yeah.
The liberators is the
Yeah,
key word
of
here.
course, yeah.
Because when we met near Hassan Bek,
Yeah.
and you said meet me at the parking lot, and the parking lot is called. Do you remember what it's called?
Yeah, it's called in Hebrew Hakopshim, which means the occupiers, and the main street, by the way, called also the Hakopshim Street, Occupier Street, and the car parking very close to Hassan Bek Mosque, called the Hakopshim parking.
So they have to decide: are they conquerors and occupiers or liberators? Because they can't be
Yeah,
both.
yeah,
You see what I mean? Because if you
Yeah.
say occupiers in English, the Zionists are very offended. But
I
they
see.
use occupiers and settlers and colonizers everywhere. Here in Motza, I mean, there are many streets called the Colonizers Street and the Settlers Hill,
Uh-huh.
and the occupiers this. And in Hebrew, they think it's very positive.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting that the trip we took with you starts on a street called the Occupiers
Yeah.
or the Conquerors, and ends with a house which is supposedly dedicated to the liberators. It's
Yeah.
almost like they couldn't make up their mind
Okay, yeah,
how to sell this. So in
Yeah.
English it's called one thing.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good point. But it is amazing me that this organization, the Irgun, has the logo outside of the building, and the logo of this organization is the land of Israel for them that they should and they must liberate, including the whole Palestine and Jordan.
And the Kingdom of Jordan and the state
And
of Jordan.
Yes, and in the middle of the logo there's a gun and two short words in Hebrew, Rakkah, which means just in this way.
Yes.
And this logo, it's shown for the thousands of people are walking and swimming and visiting the promenade of Tel Aviv every day.
Yeah.
And it's by the way, this museum is part of the Israeli Defense Ministry of Defense institutions. So it's official institute. It's
Yes.
for the state,
Yes.
and the state actually legitimizing this organization that called the Etzel. Number of the leaders of this organization were wanted by the British government as criminals.
Yes.
They became later on
Prime ministers.
prime ministers.
And actually,
of
even
the
now,
state
the
of
prime
Israel.
minister is part of the political party that comes from the Etzel,
Exactly.
really. So it's no
Exactly.
wonder.
That's
like
right.
I said, I was in Jordan now, and it's no wonder the Jordanians are very nervous that the actual plan is to take Jordan as well and include it in this greater,
Yeah.
in this greater Israel, especially in the current political atmosphere with the Trump deal and all of this.
That's right. Yeah, actually, the Israeli government for decades now are the descendants of these
Of these people,
organization.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to take maybe just a couple more minutes, and can you talk a little bit more about this vision of return?
Yeah.
Because most of the people that I talk to, at least, talk about it as though it is some kind of utopian dream.
Yeah.
You talk about it in very practical terms, and I agree with you that I think it can be practical if people sit down and plan it, because return of refugees has happened before, and of course the entire premise of the state of Israel is a premise of return. So if you can return after 2,000 years, then it shouldn't be a problem returning after 70 or 75 years.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit and what Zochrot is doing?
Yeah, exactly. This is the idea to make to take the idea of return from faraway utopia or dream that seems to many people, including unfortunately Palestinians, including the refugees themselves, that something so far and they don't see any hope or any possibility that it could be implemented. But they still believe on that. They, even if for them just kind of beautiful dream that they want to keep till the miracle will happen. We try to say that we don't want it only as a miracle or a dream, that no one is doing anything to make it closer and possible and
practical.
So we use this tool in order to make kind of political imagination to help people. If you believe in an idea, if you believe in this idea that refugees should come back, and you don't have any sense how it could be implemented, let's help each other and to think and to write about it and to give models, even to build models of villages. Some of the Palestinian refugees, for the first time, they had been asked this question in this direction, and they opened their mind and they started to imagine and to draw and even to build a small model of their future village.
In Palestine or refugees outside?
We did workshops with Palestinians inside Israel.
So 1948.
1948, what we call them the internal IDPs. We made with Palestinians from the West Bank, refugees in the West Bank from
IDPs, I'm sorry, can you say what that means? IDPs?
Yeah, internal displaced persons.
So these are refugees who are inside Palestine, but they're just not...
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about them because you mentioned that refugees are living in Jordan 2 hours from their original place. These people inside the state of Israel, and they carry the Israeli citizenship, and they live 5 minutes from their original place. They were expelled in 1948. They're forced to move or to look for a safe place. So they hid or found a place to live inside the state of Israel in other Palestinian Arab town, like in Nazareth or in Tamra or in al-Fahm. And after the establishment of the state of Israel, they show up and they were discovered in these places. And somehow they got the permission to stay in these towns and to be part of the Palestinian population inside Israel, but they never got the permission to go back to their places. Even as I said, they can, from the current house that they live in Nazareth, for example, in the neighborhood called the Safuria neighborhood in Nazareth, they can see from their balcony today the ruins of their original house in Safuria. It's just 5 kilometers from there. And they never got the permission to go back to their places. So imagine that they have the Israeli citizenship, they have even the taboo or the documentary of the ownership on of their lands and their houses, and they are considered in the eyes of the Israeli authority as absentees. You know this term of the present absentees. When we talk about present absentees, we talk about these IDPs inside the state of Israel. So the question of return, which all the time the Israelis and their supporters say that it's a question of demographic dangers, and Israelis will not allow the Palestinian refugees to come back because they will lose the Jewish majority, which is correct. And I believe if you believe in justice, yes, it's so racist to say I want to keep my majority of my ethnic group in any price, even in the price of expulsion or preventing return of these people who used to live there. But the same question we should raise when we talk about the IDPs. If they move from Nazareth to Safuri or from Tamra to Mi'ar, they will not change the demographic situation inside Israel, because they are already counted as part of the population of the state of Israel. So the question is not only the numbers on the demographic situation, it's much deeper. The Zionist movement does not acknowledge the ownership or the rights of the Palestinians on this land. So it's not a big issue if they move Palestinian community from place to other place. By the way, they are still doing that till today. In the Nakba, for example, they are forcing people to be concentrating in certain places in order to confiscate their lands. They are moving from their original fields and original land to other urban, modern place. Townships. They're doing that in Area C in the West Bank. So this idea in the Zionist perception from the beginning still kept till today, that those Palestinians they don't belong to this place. So They even said sometimes that they did the favor for us if they're just still letting us living in this area. So I think it is easy for the Israelis to move Palestinians from place to place because they believe, deeply believe, and I believe them that they believe that we don't belong to this place.
Yeah. So Omar, we were talking about Zochrot, the organization, and all the incredibly important work, unique work that the organization does. And there's a campaign that you're starting to raise awareness and to raise some funds. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people listening to this would like to know how they can help. So can you please share that with us?
Yeah, with pleasure. We are planning to open a public campaign for fundraising in the 22nd and 23rd of March, 1 month from today. And we call it 48 hours to acknowledge the 1948 crimes. We invite people that support the idea of acknowledgement of the Palestinian Nakba and supporting the right to return and the work of Zochrot to support Zochrot and to give some funds in these 2 days. We will be also happy that people know about the campaign before it starts, to distribute and to write about it, to invite others to support Zochrot's work.
And how can people help? If somebody wants to donate, what can they do? What should they do?
Well, in the campaign, in our Facebook page, and the campaign will be a special account that people can enter through our website and through our Facebook page.
So the website will have a link to pay?
Yes, the website and the Facebook page will have a link, and that people can add their donation to this link.
So Zochrot is ZOCHROT?
Right,
.org.
Yeah.
Or they can go to your Facebook page and do it through there.
Yeah, but it's not open yet. It will be opened 2 days before this campaign that will be for 48 hours. We can open that a few days before that. So.
And on the website, is there still a place to donate? Regularly?
Of course. The regular donation can be done any time. There's a link for donation and PayPal program.
And it's worth talking about some of the programs you do with Israeli schools, the programs you do with students.
Well,
to educate.
The goal of Zochrot is to challenge the Israeli perceptions in general, the Israeli public and the Israeli Jewish society. Some of the work will be done with schools, with students, but also with public, with any institution or any field or any circle of Israelis that we can reach. We reach and we talk about the importance of the acknowledgement of the Palestinian Nakba and supporting the right to return.
And these two things really are two things without which no resolution of the Palestinian, what they call the Palestinian problem, can take place unless there's a recognition of the Nakba and an understanding of the Nakba. And your website and the app are very helpful in that, because you can see each village, what happened, what it looks like today, which unit occupied it, what massacre took place, and so forth. Without understanding that, there can really be no understanding of the Palestinian issue, and without recognition of the need to implement the right of return, not just talk about it, but implement the right of return, there can really be no resolution to this issue. So these are two key issues that really, I think, only Zochrot deals with in a way that is actually very practical and visibly available for anyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we see it very important to this dimension of the Nakba and the return, the past and the future. The political work should be done. It's not only to express sorrow about what happened in the disaster, but also to give hope that in the future justice must be done, and justice must be based on the redress and the correction of the crimes that happened since 1948, including and also the main part is the implementation of the right to return.
Yeah. So again, it's Zochrot, ZOCHROT.org. You can go anytime and donate, or the 24 hours, what is it, 23rd, 24th of March
Yes,
coming up next
it's
month?
22 and 23.
I'm sorry, 22 and 23 of March.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So please
you.
contribute to this incredibly important organization. Thank you.
All right, thanks to everyone for tuning in to episode 2 of the Miko Peled podcast. Please rate and review this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify, whatever podcast app you use if you haven't already. This helps a lot with exposing the podcast to new people, and we all know there's a hell of a lot of hasbara out there to fight through, so join the online fight, rate and review us, and let's bring some more exposure to the people who are doing the good work and who could use some uplifting. Be sure to check out MikoPeled.com for a full list of speaking dates, articles, join Miko's newsletter, and to order any of Miko's books, including his latest, Injustice, The Story of the Holy Land Foundation 5. If you have any questions for Miko, you can shoot those over to me at booking@MikoPeled.com, and we will try our best to get those answered on forthcoming episodes. All right, till next time.